Thanks, Tim, and thanks, obviously, the opportunity to share the story. Quite an exciting story, an Australian story of Clarity Pharmaceuticals. We'll just click forward 2 slides, just past the disclaimer and onto the main slide. You know, and it's changing a little bit of a topic of what the previous presentations were about. In simple terms, we're in cancer, and we're all about better treating children and adults with cancer. There's been decades and decades of great Australian science in developing our technology, so there is a lot of complexity to the story. But today I'm going to try and simplify that, and certainly in the 10 minutes to broaden really the knowledge base of what Clarity is about. Because what we have at Clarity, we listed in August last year. We undertook the largest IPO of a life sciences company ever on the ASX, raising $92 million. We've got lots of money in the bank, but we have a shareholder base which is skewed towards strategic, institutional, and the top 10 shareholders own 50% of the company because of really the exciting space we're in. And really today is about simplifying that story and so people can start to understand. But really, if you hear about Clarity at all, we are a radiopharmaceutical company, and I'll go into a little bit of the nature of what that means shortly. But we're built around proprietary technology. We have some 20 patent families today. We're a global leader in what we call targeted copper theranostics. If you hear about Clarity, we're all about 2 isotopes of copper and how we utilize those to better treat cancer. And really why we're doing this is because of the significant supply benefits, environmental benefits, and really the focus on better treating these patients as this rather small niche area of radiopharmaceuticals moves into what is a massive oncology market. Can we move to the next slide? I just want to reflect on that a little bit. And look, I'm sure all the listeners here know cancer or have had someone in their family being treated for cancer. We can do it better. And there's a lot of new technologies, including what we're doing today, looking to grow that industry. We're in the area of targeted therapies, which has a large growth curve. But in particularly, there's a broad market of oncology, which, because we've really poorly treated oncology for a very long time, but these new technologies, new age technologies, are really starting to take off, like immuno-oncology in our area. So not only is oncology looking to grow significantly, but importantly, you'll see down the bottom there, in our area, in radiopharmaceuticals, diagnostics are looking to expand quite significantly off the back of the PET agents I'm about to discuss with you. But also on the therapy area, you'll realize here that the therapy side of radiopharmaceuticals is relatively new, with really only 2 products in the market today, which fit really in our technology space. As we look to grow this quite significantly over the next 10 years, we need to actually build out our radiopharmaceutical capability, and that's where Clarity fits. We go to the next slide. So the reason why radiopharmaceuticals have become flavour of the month is really driven off the positive reimbursement and the recent assets to market. Just recently, Polarify, which is a diagnostic asset. I know that's quite surprising with a Q3 result of $144 million in revenues for a company called Lantheus, and they're now capitalized off the back of that of $4 billion. This is in prostate cancer, this diagnostic, but really growing this on the back of really good efficacy data and new technologies in the market. But then I was also on the therapies like Pluvicto. When you're looking at $250,000 for the treatment over 6 doses, there's obviously a substantial need for these types of technology, and despite the issues in the rollout and the supply chain, which once again I'll reflect on shortly, still got to in Q3 with recent approval $80 million. I want to touch on 3 key companies here and 2 strategics who are really driving the space. Novartis have undertaken 2 significant transactions in recent years, Endocyte for that Pluvicto asset, and then AAA. There was $6 billion of transactions on those, and Endocyte was really on the back of phase 2 data moving into phase 3. And then Bayer acquired Algeta, and Algeta is of significance here because half of our board and a lot of our team is out of Algeta / Bayer. And that was also acquired. It's in the prostate cancer space, which really supports our prostate cancer focus within our company, and was acquired for over $2 billion US back in 2013. If we move to the next slide. So although I'm talking about our industry, about how exciting it is and niche and the opportunity, really it's driven by, at the moment, a rather cottage industry. A lot of the inputs, a lot of the isotopes are supplied off aging nuclear reactors. A lot of those are in Europe. There's been manufacturing outages and they exist today. And a simple search of Google will find a lot of those. And there's complex supply chains when you're looking to supply what is the largest market in the world, which is the US market. And at the moment, there's a real inability for the big pharmas to control their entire supply chain. And this is with time-sensitive products which have short half-lives to be able to do that. So all of that is currently trying to drive out or supply what is the growth of this market in the massive oncology area. And this has caused a couple of, obviously, some significant issues, but the main is that the people who are treating, the oncologists who are treating patients, are starting to lose confidence with the products. And we can't have that in radiopharmaceuticals. We need to deliver products on time and obviously consistently, and that's where Clarity fits in. If we go to the next slide. So as I touched on in the beginning, we're focused really on two isotopes of copper, and that is copper-64 for imaging. And a lot of you may know what PET imaging is. And the predominant use of that is through FDG, a label glucose, to try and determine where you have your tumours. But where copper-64 is a little bit different is that we're obviously fitting on the targeting moieties themselves, and I'll go into that a little bit more detailed. And it's produced on cyclotrons instead of short half-life isotopes that have half-lives of about an hour or 2 hours, which is dominating the market, including that Polarify asset is a 2-hour half-life isotope. We're 12.7 hours. We can centrally manufacture off a single cyclotron and broadly distribute throughout, large markets like the US, and we also do that in Australia from Adelaide itself for our clinical trials on the coast. And that provides us a lot of flexibility. Instead of having to image patients in 1 hour, we have the flexibility over 1 to 24 hours, or even we've imaged out to 72 hours in one of our trials. And really we're delivering here, and there's a level of complexity here. A lot of the short-lived isotopes require generators close to the patients, and we don't require any of that. We'll be providing ready-to-use GMP products for delivered to sites, injected into the patient, and then imaged. But where we really differentiate ourselves is this perfect pairing of copper, where we can then utilize copper-67 as a therapy agent. It's almost identical to the latest isotope, which is taking the world in that, and particularly in that Pluvicto asset. It's almost identical to that in every way except for the half-life, and our half-life is more optimal for the peptides that we use. So we target, hit, treat, and excrete. Commercially available on rotatrons provide ample commercial supply of those. And those rotatrons are the size of a cyclotron. They fit into a room. They're not the size of a nuclear reactor. So we're drifting completely away from this reactor-based isotope supply to have it within country, within the US, the largest market first, and then driving and have the ability to control that entire supply chain, which is a real differentiator once again in commercializing this perfect pairing. And this delivers then a few things. We have obviously the supply chain benefits there, but also, and it's touched on by a number of the previous, certainly the previous speaker, the environmental considerations when we talk ESG. We're moving away from reactor and long-lived waste from other, which you need for the production of other isotopes, to very simple manufacturing processes, very clean manufacturing for copper-64 on cyclotrons, copper-67 on rotatrons. And so as we grow from what is a very small industry into a very large one, this will continue to be an increasing focus for pharmaceutical companies, particularly the big pharma companies that are already across it in other areas. Next slide. So I want to touch on what our technology is, just to share it with the listeners, obviously the viewers, is where we're, and you're probably used to taking medicines and they're small molecules and they go everywhere in the body. And then you have products like chemotherapy, which is rather toxic to myriad tissues. And this is why you lose your hair. Not the reason why I lost my hair, but certainly a reason why chemo patients lose their hair is because it's toxic to a number of the tissues. What we are is very different. We're targeted therapies. So we need to target the therapies to the tumor itself. And that's where we have a thing called a targeting molecule, which specifically attaches to a cage. And the cage is the secret sauce. So back many decades ago, as I said, there was a great scientist out of ANU, Professor Alan Sargison, who said, we can hold these other metals, but we can't hold copper. And we need a chelator that holds copper because of this perfect pairing. So he made one. And that got into the hands of Professor Paul Donnelly at the University of Melbourne, who made it easy to use, highly stable, and importantly, bifunctional, that allows us to attach any one of small molecules or anything up to large antibodies or anything in between, so we can specifically target cancers and not have it target other healthy tissues and then excrete it through the body. And that is really what our technology is. And given we're a platform technology, it gives us the opportunity to commercialize myriad assets. And this is where we are today, commercializing those. Next slide, please. And the one after. And so there's a fair bit of detail here, but this is where I want to reflect on what is really core fundamental platform technology is now rolled out into, in particularly, 3 core product areas, which are getting into later stage development. Next year, we'll be in phase 3 clinical trials for our diagnostics in prostate cancer. That market, just in diagnostics, is looking to get to blockbuster revenues, which is north of $1 billion shortly. And I mentioned that Pylarify asset earlier with the short half-life. We'll be looking to run those phase 3s as early as next year. But we have a number of products in development. I'll reflect on those, the ones that are in clinical development now. And firstly, on the next slide, we're in prostate cancer as a key area for our company. We have the experience in prostate cancer, given the Algeta number of Algeta and Bayer people within our organisation, and we have what we've done is optimised this BIS PSMA product to be what we think is a leader in our space. And we have a number of trials going on there. On the therapy side, we're in a dose escalation, dose expansion trial in the US under IND. For those who know, I won't go into that now, but we have the regulatory approval to run that trial, and it is running as we speak. And then, because of this large market opportunity in diagnostics, we're running 2 separate diagnostic studies. Propeller, which is in pre-prostatectomy patients, and then Cobra, which is in biochemical recurrence, or when you've had that treatment of your prostate removed and you have some rising PSA levels for those. We're running that trial as well. And they're the 2 areas that the FDA wish us to go into, and really that is a large market opportunity for us. Those trials recruited very well. The Cobra trials recruiting very quickly. And we'll have another update on that very shortly, and they'll move into phase 3 clinical trials. Next slide, please. Bombesin is another exciting product for us. It is also going into prostate cancer, but we're actually focusing on this niche area of around about anywhere between 10, 20, 25% of patients don't have that PSMA target, and Bombesin is able to target that market. We ran originally a trial at St. Vincent's Hospital in breast cancer, but the urologist started wanting to use Bombesin in their prostate cancer patients because they couldn't detect any disease with the currently available imaging modalities, and then were able to, in a small number of patients, originally 4 patients, were able to suddenly find the tumours and then treat the tumours. So we've already changed treatment outcomes for those patients at St Vincent's Hospital. We've now rolled that in because of the strong demand at St Vincent's Hospital into an investigator-initiated trial, which is really to service the large amount of patients we have here in Sydney, and then also in a phase 2 clinical trial diagnostic in the US, which is currently running and recruiting at this point in time. And the next slide, I'll just touch on this, which is Sartate, which is the next product in our pipeline, but certainly much further progressed as far as the opportunity. We're in a phase 1/2 clinical trial in neuroblastoma, one of the nastiest killer of kids under 5. It is the nastiest. And so we've moved up the cohorts. We're in cohort 3 in a dose escalation and do a dose expansion. And we have orphan drug designation, but also the rare pediatric disease designations for the diagnostic and the therapy, which provide us opportunity to get the vouchers, which trade for about 110 million US. Next slide, please. This is just, and I'll leave this for everyone to view, what we do at Clarity. We like to tell you what we're going to do, then we go and do it, and then we come back and told you what we did. And then we like to tell you again what we're going to do. And as you see here, we've already ticked some of the boxes here of this year and moving into next year, looking to really further progress our clinical programs, really with that ultimate goal of better treating children and adults with cancer. I'll move to the next slide. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Alan. Very comprehensive. We've got a number of questions here. Now, you floated in August 2021, and I think you said you raised $90 million, which is an incredible achievement, given what's happened to the biotech industry over the last 12 months in particular, but your share price is rock solid. Where did you get that support from in terms of who's the client base, or the investor base? I think I saw the Australian government's a small shareholder. Is that correct?
So the Australian government is obviously the shareholder and only owner of ANSTO, the Australian Nuclear Science and Technology Organisation. That organisation is a shareholder of us through some original technology that came in and then invested over time within our company, knowing obviously the benefits of radiopharmaceuticals. We also have the University of Melbourne, obviously where the technology came from, who also invested in our company. Quite a unique position for obviously a university, but they've seen obviously the benefits of that and knew the benefits of what we're looking to achieve. And they've been not only a great shareholder, but they've obviously a great collaborator in moving the IP into the company and the like. But we have strategic investors. Genesis Care have a significant position in us, who's the major provider of private cancer services in Australia, and they made a massive acquisition in the US of 21st Century Oncology. They see how the US being the predominant market, a lot of cancer patients are treated actually in the community setting, not like Australia where it's more in the, you'd go to St Vincent's Hospital or a big teaching hospital, potentially you get your cancer treated. In the US, 80% is treated in these community centers, and they're one of those groups. And this is where we differentiate ourselves to get products to those patients. And then we have a really good institutional following. As I said, there's a fairly large ownership internally. When you put shares and options in place, I think our team own up around 30% of the company. And as I said, it's rather consolidated with a strategic institutional team, and then obviously high net worth will follow the story for a long time.
I mean, we often see biotechs are either well supported by institutions or well supported by retail. They don't seem to merge. So for retail investors, and it is a complicated space, what are some of the key points they should know about Clarity? Yeah,
and it's probably my fault. I blame myself. So we have a complex story. I'm PhD educated. And when you speak to a fund or a strategic, they usually have a PhD in the room. So we haven't done a lot of any marketing to retail. The retail book sold out within a very small amount of time when we did the IPO. We had Jefferies and Bell Potter front a book there, and obviously Jefferies helped out there. There was a very strong demand, but only a small allocation for retail. So, and we haven't made any efforts to get to a broader retail audience. But the key factors for us are we're in this hot space, and there's other companies in our space, small number of companies in radiopharmaceuticals, and it's a rather niche area. what the opportunity is. If you look at companies like Lantheus, who have grown fairly significantly in recent years with a small number of products and one in the market in particular, now $4 billion US. There's a very strong focus now on obviously that diagnostic market as well as therapy. But what's key to us and what differentiates us from others is that we're later stage in our development. And there is a strong focus now. I showed you two strategics who are in the space and will continue to making acquisitions there, but there's a large number of strategics now of taking notice and who want positions in the space. Where we fit, we're clearly differentiated away from the other isotopes that have supply issues to be the main player in copper theranostics. And that will continue to grow as in particular we bring products to market. But then also we start combination therapies with some of those assets that Big Pharma have, including immuno-oncology assets, where there's good opportunity to work together.
And in terms of working together, you seem to have a portfolio of products, if you like, or therapies. Is the plan to kind of license and partner with Big Pharma to move forward?
Yeah, good question. So we're definitely not a one-trick pony. And we've driven that platform of products which are in really nice niche areas. Where we differentiate, as I said before, it's this supply chain and being the major player in copper. So we're not necessarily looking, and this may change, but we're not looking necessarily to license one tech or one product. We may work with manufacturers and the like, but really this is a big play where we continue, we could roll out 20, 30, 40, 50 products if we're under a big pharma batter, which would actually work and grow out and expand into this market. So that's where we're looking to play more from that corporate perspective rather than maybe a single asset or partnering opportunities. And that's where we're seeing, obviously this is a very interesting space to Big Pharma. I'm not speaking out of school here, but that's where there's lots of interest in companies like ours.
And I suppose without those partnerships, if you like, funding is always the issue with biotech. What's that pathway look like moving forward?
So we've had a good capital market strategy already. We did a pre-IPO round of 25 and then an IPO of 92. We still have, around about $90 million in the bank, 84 currently, and then 6 coming in from R&D tax imminently. So we've got funding out to 24, 25. So we're in a really strong funding position. There might be some other things that we do, which actually bolsters that funding position, but certainly to get, and this is probably where we've been able to overcome what, as you mentioned before, probably the worst biotech market in the history of global markets. But it's not driven by the fundamentals. Pharmaceutical companies have more money than they've ever had, and are more aggressive on acquisitions than they've ever been. So we have the opportunity to ride that out and bring products to market in that time. There's a lot of, as you saw just this year, moving into next year, there's a lot of catalysts for us, and we'll continue to build out that story. So we don't have to worry about money today, but it's always front of mind. Obviously, from a person like me who's spent decades in the capital markets, it's always front of mind, and to see how we can obviously leverage that or drive that out further.
Thanks, Alan. You're certainly in a strong position relative to the rest of the industry out there. So congratulations. We'll follow up in the new year.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Thanks so much.